Good morning. Welcome to this video. Today we shall look at in this session Isbp on bill of lading paragraphs E1 to E28. Isbp bill of lading paragraphs E1 to E28. We have seen in detail what Isbp had to explain, elaborate, and interpret the UCP Article 19 on multimodal transport documents, and here we'll be looking at Article 20, the bill of lading article, the interpretation to the bill of lading article by UCP. The bill of lading, when the credit calls for a bill of lading or when the credit calls for a port-to-port shipment, and when there is no reference to a place of taking in charge or a place of final destination, and where there is no indication of a charter party, irrespective of whether it is called as marine BL or an ocean BL or a port-to-port BL, Article 20 of UCP is applicable. So when a credit calls for a port-to-port shipment, or when there is no reference of a place of receipt or place of final destination, or when there is no indication of charter party, irrespective of whether it is named marine BL, ocean BL, or port-to-port BL, Article 20 of UCP will be applicable. Looking at issuance, it may be issued by any entity other than carrier or master. The UCP article straightaway says it has to be issued by carrier or as agents for carrier. Isbp says it can be issued by any party other than carrier or master, provided it is signed as per Article 20, which means it can be issued by agents who are acting for and on behalf of the carrier or the master. So as long as carrier is identified and somebody is acting for and on behalf of carrier, such a bill of lading is acceptable. If the credit indicates freight forwarders BL or house BL is acceptable, then it can be signed by any issuing authority. Again, what we mean here, any issuing authority, without indicating capacity, without indicating carrier. If the credit says freight forwarders BL acceptable, carrier need not be identified and capacity need not be indicated, and anybody can sign as an issuing entity. If credit doesn't say this, then it can be issued by any entity, but it should be signed as per Article 20, which means as agents for carrier, as agents for master, where carrier needs to be identified, and if it is as agents for master, master need not be named, but carrier has to be named. If credit indicates freight forwarders transaction not acceptable, if the credit indicates freight forwarders BL or house BL is not acceptable, then it has no specific meaning in the ISBP or UCP, which means the title, the format or content or the signing is not being explained or interpreted by this clause saying freight forwarders BL or house BL not acceptable. So if UCP and ISBP is not giving us any clue on what should be the title, format, content or signing of such a document which is not acceptable, then the credit has to say specifically how it should be issued and signed. If the credit does not say how the document has to be issued and signed, and if the credit just says this document is not acceptable, the document checker will be guided by Article 20 of the UCP. Now, the bill of lading, the ocean BL or port-to-port BL or marine BL, the bill of lading has to be signed as defined in Article 20A1. This signature is what we have been talking about in a here or here. The signature has to indicate the name of the carrier identified as carrier. In a BL, the signature has to be indicated as a name of the carrier or identified as carrier. When agent signs, the agent should indicate as agents for and on behalf of the carrier. So the capacity and identity should be mentioned. Is it is for and on behalf of carrier or for and on behalf of master? Capacity and identity should be mentioned. If it is carrier, then carrier has to be identified. If it is master, name of the master need not be stated. When master is signing for and on behalf of carrier or as master, either way, the name of the master need not be stated. Signed by a carrier's branch is considered as a sign by the carrier. When carrier has multiple branches and one of the branches is signing, it is considered as signed by the actual carrier. Looking at onboard notation, the onboard notation, date of payment, date of shipment, pre-carriage and place or ports. If it is pre-printed shipped on board BL is presented. If a pre-printed shipped on board BL is presented, issuance date is deemed to be the date of shipment. What is a pre-printed shipped on board? The BL, there are two types of BL practically in the market. One is shipped on board and one is received for shipment. Shipped on board BL is normally issued when the carrier has already received the goods alongside the ship and he has got it loaded on the ship, and then the BL is issued. Received for shipment is the goods has been received by the carrier but it has not been carried to the ship yet. These are two types of BLs. Depending upon at what point in time the BL is getting issued by the carrier or the carrier's agents, it will be either a shipped on board BL or a received for shipment BL. When the shipped on board aspect is pre-printed in the BL, that means the actual shipment may or may not have happened. In such a case, the issuance date will be deemed to the shipment unless and until there is a separate onboard notation. If such a notation is there, whether or not this date is before or after the date of issuance, this date will be considered as the date of shipment. The onboard date will be considered as the date of shipment. Though the credit may need to evidence a port-to-port shipment, notwithstanding the fact that the credit calls for a port-to-port shipment, if the transport document indicates a place of receipt different from port of loading. The example cited in Isbp is the currency yard situation, the container yard situation, ICT, ICD or CY. So if it indicates a place of receipt different from the port of loading and no indication of pre-carriage, then the indication of pre-carriage means what? The pre-carriage can be indicated either on the pre-carriage field or the place of receipt field. If a place of receipt and port of loading are different, then possibly there could be a pre-carriage by a feeder vessel, then thereafter it will go to mother vessel, or maybe there could be a pre-carriage by an inland waterway or a road or an air transport, and thereafter it will be moved to another because it's a port-to-port BL to a mothership. So pre-carriage can be indicated in different means, either by mentioning the field or mentioning in the place of receipt field. If there is no indication of pre-carriage, but there is an indication that place of receipt is different from the port of loading, the pre-printed receipt for shipment BL, the dated onboard notation is required. If it is a pre-printed receipt for shipment BL, dated onboard is required. If it is a pre-printed shipped onboard BL, the date of issue will be date of shipment and no further onboard is required. So as we looked at or discussed the received for shipment and shipped onboard concepts, if it is a shipped onboard, no further onboard is required. If it is received for shipment, an onboard notation is required, and such a date will be considered as a date of shipment when the place of receipt is different from the port of loading. And there may be an indication of pre-carriage, there may be no indication of pre-carriage, that doesn't change the situation. When the BL indicates a place of receipt that is the same as port of loading. If it is same as port of loading, we have a container yard, ICT, ICD, inland container terminal, inland container depot. Here we have situation Amsterdam and Rotterdam types. So here we have Rotterdam CY or Rotterdam ICD or Rotterdam like that. So here when the BL is indicating the place of receipt that is same as the port of loading, if it is pre-printed received for shipment, a dated onboard is required. If it is a pre-printed shipped onboard, the issuance date will be considered as date of shipment and no further onboard is required. If it is shipped on board, no further onboard required. If it is received for shipment, a specific onboard with a date is required, which will be considered as date of shipment. Now, notwithstanding the fact that the credit requires a port-to-port shipment, if the transport document indicates a place of receipt different from port of loading, if it indicates a place of receipt different from port of loading, same as the situation here, and the indication of a means of pre-carriage, if the transport document indicates a place of receipt different from port of loading and there is an indication of pre-carriage, here there is no indication of pre-carriage, here there is an indication of pre-carriage, then whether it is pre-printed or pre-printed shipped on board or received for either type of BL, it should bear a onboard notation. When there is no indication, if it is shipped on board, the onboard notation is not required. If it is received for shipment, onboard is required. When there is no indication of when there is an indication of pre-carriage, onboard is compulsory. Onboard is compulsory, irrespective of the fact that whether it is a shipped on board or a received for BL. And this indication of pre-carriage, irrespective of the fact that a place of receipt is mentioned or not, there will be a requirement for onboard. So onboard is required when the BL indicates a pre-carriage. Onboard is required when a BL indicates a place of receipt different from a port of loading. And if there is no indication of pre-carriage, even if the places are different, onboard will not be required if it is shipped onboard, but onboard will be required if it is received for BL. These are the situations on which an onboard notation will be compulsory on a BL. Now, the BL should indicate the port of loading stated in the credit. The country need not be stated. If it says Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, then only Jeddah needs to be mentioned. If it says the BL, if it is any other port mentioned, such a port should be mentioned in the, can be mentioned in the place of receipt field also, but the dated onboard is required. So for here also we have the example of Flexitove in the Isbp. We can have a shipment to, suppose it is Moscow, then Moscow, Russia need not be mentioned, only Moscow has to be mentioned. And if Moscow is mentioned in the place of receipt field, there needs to be an onboard which says the goods were loaded on board a mother vessel at Moscow. So the vessel and the port has to be linked in the onboard notation. When the credit indicates a geographical area, it should indicate the actual port. If it says any European port, the actual port, Amsterdam or Rotterdam, has to be mentioned. If it is shipped on board, is the requirement under the credit. If the credit says a shipped on board BL is required, then a shipped and apparent good order or laden on board or clean on board BLs will be acceptable. So these words, either the word shipped or on board, part of any clause will give the same effect as shipped on board BL. The named port should appear in the port of loading field. Here we are saying it should indicate the port of loading stated in the credit, and it could be in any field. Here it says a named port should appear in the port of loading field, or a notation saying the goods were loaded on board at the named port mentioned in the credit. The named port should appear on the date of port of loading field, or an onboard notation should say at which port the goods were loaded on board and name of the mother vessel. If the transport document indicates a place of receipt different from, then there is no indication of pre-carriage, a pre-carriage field. This is what we have already seen here above. And if it indicates more than one port of loading, if the transport document indicates more than one port of loading, the onboard notation with the relevant onboard date for each bill of lading is required for each port. If the transport document indicates more than one port of loading, the onboard notation should be there for each port of loading. If there is more than, so we can have a transport document where goods can be loaded on various ports on the Europe, or various ports across America, or various ports across India. Goods can be loaded in, for example, you can take it from Karachi in Pakistan and Bombay in India, and then Cochin in India, Chennai in India, and like that, and then it can, the vessel can further move to Singapore. So if the goods are loaded from multiple ports in India, suppose, then there has to be an onboard notation for each of this port, irrespective of whether it is received for BL or shipped for BL. Looking at the port of discharge, when a credit requires or stipulates a discharge port, definitely a credit will stipulate a discharge port because this is a port-to-port BL situation where Article 20 is applicable. Then the named port of discharge should appear on the port. If the named port of discharge is appearing not on the port of discharge field but appearing on a place of destination field, then there should be a notation that says the port mentioned in the place of destination is actually the port of discharge. Such a notation should be there. This is the reverse of the onboard notation for loading. If the credit indicates a geographical area for discharge, suppose any port in India it can be discharged, the actual port of discharge should be mentioned in the transport document. In a port-to-port BL, the actual port of discharge should be mentioned within the area. The area need not be mentioned, and the country need not be mentioned. What's an original? The transport document should indicate the number of originals that have been issued. It can say 3x3, which is 3 originals plus 3 copies. It can say original, duplicate, triplicate, or first copy is first, second original, third original. Either way, all these are considered as different names of the same original, and each original is equally valid, and these are called as original. Normally, the LC will call for full set. Looking at consignee, notified party, and other related aspects. If the credit requires goods are consigned to a named entity, that is a straight consignment and not to order, then the words to order or to order of or order should not appear. If it says consigned to Bank of America, it should not say consigned to Bank of America or order. It should not say consigned to the order of Bank of America. It should just say Bank of America. If it is issued to order or to order of the shipper, if the consignee required by the credit is to order or to order of the shipper, then it should be endorsed by shipper or by any other entity for and on behalf of the shipper, so as to make it negotiable and the title transferable by endorsement and delivery. If the credit calls for a consignee where credit is to be, the document is to be consigned to the order of a named entity. Here we are saying to the order of shipper, here are saying just straight consigned to named entity. Here to order of named entity, then it should not indicate goods are straight consigned. If the credit calls for an consignment to the order of a named entity, it should not be straight consigned. Looking at notified party, if the credit stipulates the details of one or more notified parties, then the transport document can state one or more additional parties. If X and Y are mentioned here, the transport document can mention X and Z, Y and Z, X, Y and Z. If the credit does not stipulate the details of notified party, then the transport document can indicate any notified party in any manner. If the credit does not stipulate, transport document may indicate any notified party in any manner it is acceptable. But if the details of applicant are mentioned as notified party, it should not be conflicting with the credit. If the details of applicant are mentioned in the transport document as notified party and the credit does not stipulate any other notified party, the details should not be conflicting with the credit. If the credit requires goods should be consigned to bank or applicant or notify bank or applicant, consigned to bank or applicant or notify issuing bank or applicant, then the document should indicate the name of issuing bank or applicant. If it is required to be consigned or notified, document should indicate the name of issuing bank or applicant, and this need not indicate the address or contact details. Here also it should not be conflicting with credit, need not indicate the contact details or the address. If contact details and address are mentioned, it should not conflict with the credit. If the address and contact details of the applicant or bank is mentioned as consignee or notified party, it should not conflict with what is stated in the credit. Transshipment. What is transshipment for the purpose of this Isbp paragraph or UCP article 20? It is unloading and reloading of goods from one vessel to another. In multimodal, we have seen it is from one means of conveyance to another on the same or different mode of transport. It is from one vessel to another is transshipment, provided this unloading and reloading happens during the carriage from the loading port to the discharge port mentioned in the credit. Now, if the unloading and reloading happens not within the carriage or not within these ports, then it is not a transshipment. What is partial shipment? Partial shipment means shipment on more than one vessel, even if such means of conveyance leave the same day for the same port. Here, by means of conveyance, we mean the vessel, even if such vessel leaves on the same day for the same destination. If the credit prohibits partial shipment and if one or more BL is submitted, if the credit prohibits partial shipment and if one or more BL is submitted, shipment from the ports within the given range, more than one BL, more than one port within the given range, each should indicate the same means of vessel, same means of conveyance and the same journey and same destination. If the credit prohibits partial shipment and if a transport document more than one set of BLs are submitted and if the shipment is happening from the one or more ports within the given range, each set of the transport document should indicate shipment by the same vessel, same journey, same destination. Same vessel, same journey, same destination. Only then such a transport document will be acceptable. If it incorporates different dates of shipment, the latest date of shipment will be considered for calculation of presentation period. Latest date will also have to fall well within the last date for shipment. If the credit allows partial shipment, if the credit prohibits partial shipment, the latest date will be considered and each set should have indication that the goods are moving on the same vessel, on the same journey, same destination. If the credit allows partial shipment and if more than one transport document is submitted, it can incorporate different dates of shipment, and in such a case the earliest date will be considered for presentation period. The earliest date will be taken and from there the 14 days or 21 days for the presentation we will calculate. Likewise, the earliest dates will have to fall well within the last date for shipment indicated in the credit, even if the partial shipments are allowed by the credit. Let us look at what is clean. When the credit calls for a clean transport document, it means the transport document should not include a clause that expressly declare a defective condition of the goods or package. As long as there is no clause that says the goods or the packing is defective, the transport document is considered as clean. It is not necessary for the word clean to appear, and the deletion of the word clean does not mean there is a defect in the goods or documents. The example is packing is insufficient and packing may be insufficient. Packing is insufficient means it is a defective condition of the packing. Packing may be insufficient means it is not a defective condition of the packing. Regarding description, the goods description indicated in the transport document in the BL may be in general terms, not in conflict with the credit. It can be in bits and pieces, it need not correspond, it need not be mirror image, it should not conflict with the credit. That is only a requirement. Regarding delivery agent, the credit will call for the transport document to indicate the delivery agent. The delivery agent is the agent who will release the goods to the consignee or the buyer or whoever carries the BL, because if it is available by endorsement and delivery. The credit requires to indicate the name and address and contact details of the delivery agent. Name, address and contact details are called for by the credit, not stipulated by the credit, called for by the credit. Then the address need not be the one located at the place of destination. If the shipment is happening to New York, the address need not be in New York. Also, it need not be within the same country as destination. The address of the delivery agent need not be in New York, need not be in New York State, need not be in United States of America also. It can be in any other country, the name of the delivery agent. Corrections. If there are any corrections in the transport document, they have to be authenticated. Who should authenticate? Either the carrier or the master. Agents can authenticate provided they act as agents for the carrier or as agents for the master. The agent who is issuing the BL and the agent who is making the authentication for correction can be different as long as the carrier is identified and both agents are acting as agents for the same carrier. Non-negotiable copies need not be authenticated. Copies of the transport document are not transport documents from the UCP perspective for articles 19 to 24 to apply, and accordingly need not be authenticated. Freight and additional costs. Freight is the cost we pay to the carrier for carrying the goods, and additional cost may be cost related to freight or otherwise. A statement indicating payment of freight need not be identical to that stated in the credit. The credit may call for freight prepaid or freight collect. The transport document may say freight payable at destination, freight paid at departure port. It can say any other words. It need not be identical to what is stated in the credit. So payable at destination and freight collect is one and the same, and the LC may say one and the transport document may say other, and still it is acceptable. If the credit states cost additional to freight are not acceptable, if the credit says cost additional to freight, this is about freight, this is additional to freight, if it is not acceptable, then the transport document should not indicate that cost additional to freight have been incurred or will be incurred. The transport document should not say the cost have been incurred or will be incurred. What cost? Cost additional to freight. When the credit says cost additional to freight, not acceptable. How it will be indicated? What is the indication? The indication of cost additional to freight may be by express reference to additional cost, saying this much has been incurred for this purpose or will be incurred for this purpose, or maybe use of trade terms, FIOS. FIOS is free in out stored. It can be FI, CFR FI. CFR is cost and freight plus FI is free in. FO free out. FIO free in and out. Likewise, it can be mentioned. Okay, these are cost additional to freight. What are the costs which are not considered as additional to freight? A reference to the cost which may be levied are not an indication of the cost additional to freight. Which cost? The cost covering the late return of containers, cost incurred or levied as due to delay in unloading the goods because the ship arrived late, the ship did not leave the port, the container were not unloaded for whatever reason, or after the goods have been unloaded, the container is not being returned, late return of. So demurrage and detention charges are not considered as cost additional to freight. Surrendering of the BL. The transport document submitted, the BL should not say that more than one BL will have to be submitted for release of the goods. If the goods are carried in a container and if the goods in one container is covered by two different BLs, the transport document should not say that the goods will be released only on surrender of BLX plus BLY, as long as both the BLs are not presented by the same party under the same presentation. So unless all the BLs called for on the specific BL is forming part of the same presentation, The transport document should not expressly state that goods will only be released upon surrender of one or more BLs. Thanks for watching this video. We shall meet again on another session on another transport.